Hello, this is a hardcore Katsu, and I'm just wanting to make a video. I'm sorry about the last video, how the ending kind of just kept on going. I'm having problems with Movie Maker and audio clips. Considering this is the best way to make videos right now for me, audio clips is the best way to go for me. Um, I'm just trying to experiment with media here. Which one would work better for me? I know I would rather use video, but audio, the sound is a lot better for audio. I mean, clearly, it's I'm just trying to get settled here. I watched the NWO the Revolution DVD. Fantastic. I think it's probably one of the better described videos. Hell, it even had Vince Russo in it. I mean, of all people, Vince fucking Russo. And it had a bunch of other guys. Obviously, it had old clips. We've probably seen like a trillion times, like with Eric Bischoff, from like 2005, somewhere around there when he did his DVD. They keep on using his clips for DVDs, talking about WCW. It's ridiculous because that's all they have on Eric Bischoff. It's his shoot interview or wherever the hell it is. They used all kinds of people. DDP. They didn't use. They used input. They used Dusty Rhodes and they used Cody Rhodes, which I thought was pretty cool because he was a fan of WCW. Clearly, because his dad and his brother were in WCW. I think that was pretty cool. That for me, it described it from being a fan of the NWO, not really WCW. But what they didn't really focus on was, they should have focused on, other things too. I mean, they should have talked about the fan interaction with the NWO. They should have talked about the revolution in general, of the NWO. I think it's clearly a good movement, and it's kind of funny how the NWO is still around. You see people out in crowds with NWO T-shirts, and you're like, NWO for life, But I watched that, and I've been watching interviews. I watched Vince Russo's interview, a couple of his shoot interviews with Ed Ferrara, and how he was a pro wrestler before he became this storyteller. Not Vince Russo, but Ferrara. He was a wrestler. He was a writer or whatever the heck he was in Hollywood, and he he became a pro wrestler through he wanted to train. He wanted to become a pro wrestler, so he did that, and then I guess he somehow got into the story writing business. I didn't watch the whole thing, but I was just like, oh my gosh. And Vince Russo, believe it or not, I mean, I watched a couple interviews with him. One was on the radio talk show. One was actually an actual interview with him, video, physically there, talking about his life story and how he changed the business with his attitude, quote unquote. Uh, I think I wouldn't give all the credit to Vince Russo because he thinks he has the credit. He thinks he created the Attitude Era. I personally think he did not. I personally think that Vince Russo is just the guy that he wrote he was a writer in WWE or WWF magazine or Raw magazine, and he was a writer, and he put a lot of edgy stuff in his interviews or in his thoughts on the magazine. And this was when the WWE was very extremely PG, sort of like how it is today. I guess you can probably put that in a reference if you're a wrestling fan, or if you don't know, you know kind of, you had larger than life characters back then. You had comic book, cartoonish type characters that were just bad gimmicks, just really bad gimmicks. And nobody did shoot interviews or anything of that sort. So they, Vince Russo thinks he changed all that. I think Vince McMahon, he was watching WCW. Oh, we got to compete with them. And then there's ECW. I think it was a mixture of both that gave it, because Paul Heyman, when he launched ECW, they were doing a lot of edgy shit. Excuse my language. They were doing a lot of edgy stuff, and they were putting people through tables and chairs. They were hitting people with chairs, and they were lighting people on fire, and they were doing all sorts of stuff. They did a lot of edgy stuff. They had the first ever, this fight. Even later on, they had the first lesbian angle in ECW. Stone Cold Steve Austin drank his first beer in ECW. They did a lot of, I'm not, saying, I'm not adding names or anything, but they did a lot of stuff, and I think that's where Vince McMahon came up with the Attitude Era. That's my personal opinion. Anybody else can have their own opinion of it. They can say that Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels started the Attitude Era, which in some respect that was the case. But in 1990, in the early 1990s, ECW was excuse me, was kicking ass and taking names, and I just think it was a crappy interview. So I was watching Vince Russo, I was watching Perry Saturn, and then I ran into WCW, which was a fantastic. I watched a show of WCW. It was in 1999. I think it was January 7th. It was the night after the finger. It was the week after the Finger Poke of Doom. So it was, the main event was, you had Ric Flair and David, and you had Kurt Hennig. Then you had, the Giant or the Big Show versus Scott Hall. And it was a total jump. And I think that's when that had to have been the time or the spot where he jumped to the World Wrestling Federation, which I thought Big Show actually jumped after. I thought he jumped later on. I thought he jumped in 98, 97. I thought, but that's why I'm like trying to think well, what the fuck happened? What happened to the Big Show? I guess I just can't put it into perspective. It kind of caught me off weird though. So, anyways, I have all that. I was watching that, and then I'm gonna watch. I found Sold Out somewhere, so I'm gonna watch that. I want to watch the Goldberg versus Scott Hall match. I mean, obviously, it's WCW, so I'm not that excited about it. But hey, I gotta brush up on some wrestling history. I gotta learn what WCW is all about. I can't see how people would have that and not understand that. And I want to know what the heck was all about WCW. How bad it was. I would love to watch the Vince Russo era just to see. But I like watching before the Vince Russo era, this Vince Russo era, just to see how bad it was before it. I want to see how bad it was. But other than that, I've been watching Monday Night Raw. We'll go back to the WWE currently, and I think the streak will end. I just have a weird feeling that CM Punk's going to beat John Cena's record. Clearly beat his record. But, I think after that, then there's going to be really nothing he can do. I don't think he can hold it anymore. I think he'll fly by John Cena's record, and I think he'll try to continue, and I think they should. I think they should beat him by a long shot, by a whole month. Then have him drop the title. Excuse me again. I have a sore throat. I don't know what the heck's happening. Hope I'm not getting sick. I just hope that he passes John Cena. You know, and you know, wrestling's predetermined. And this takes me back to Vince Russo again. Vince Russo saying, "Oh well, why would you?" I knew wrestling was fake since I was 12 years old when I first started watching it. And why would you know? Why would you not believe that the titles were predetermined? Well, obviously so. The titles, all the wins and everything is predetermined. So in a way, you really don't have a world champion. You don't have a credible champion because there's a story written, and it's based around the title, which I think is just ridiculous. Because if you're gonna look at wrestling that way, then why watch it? I'm just saying, why watch it? If you're gonna dissect the wrestling show like that, if you're gonna dissect it like that and look at it like that, why watch it? You might as well just go home and shut up. I like to look at it with a little bit of mystery. I don't like looking up rumors and all that stuff about the show. Kind of like what I used to do with TNA. I wouldn't look up anything about the show. I wouldn't look up anything where it was pre-recorded, because that's what's killing TNA right now. If you didn't have that predictability with TNA, where you can look at what happened on the show, on Monday or whenever the hell they do their show, I think it's just ridiculous because, I think they do it on Tuesdays, don't they? It's either Monday or Tuesday, I don't remember. They do their show and then they give away all their stuff. The dirt sheets have it, so you can look it all up. I don't do that for TNA. I want to keep surprised on who the winner's going to be. Because other than that, if I read it, then why watch it? The surprise is already ruined. So there's no real reason to watch it. Well, I don't even look at it. I don't try to go on dirt sheets anymore. WrestlingAttitude.com or No DQ or Pro Wrestling Insider or anything. I don't try to. I just try to keep on YouTube and watch my wrestling. I think it still can be a sport. The reason why WWE and people ask this all the time in videos, I've noticed. Oh, why can't we go back to the way it was? Obviously, excuse me again. Vince McMahon, WWE, is a publicly owned organization. It has stockholders and it has sponsors. Sponsors, in order to keep the sponsors, you have to keep them happy. In other words, you have to do what they want, what's good for business, and what's fan friendly, what's not. And it happens to go with what your audience turns out to be. If magically, and I've been noticing that there are less kids in the audience, there's still enough women. I mean, there's always going to be women that go to those things because they're always wanting to hook up with the wrestlers or whatever the hell they're trying to do. Or they're wanting to be a wrestler, or they're just following, or they're just wanting to go to something. They're a casual fan. They're not the hardcore fan like us YouTubers are. So they go to these, and they, I don't know what the hell, but you can look at it, and it'll be, I'm losing my train of thought. I'm sorry. You can look at the. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. This is horrible. Vince Russo is an idiot. he, this whole thing is on Vince Russo. I just really hate doing all this. Doing all this information about Vince Russo. Explaining myself of these interviews. I seriously lost my train of thought. I was thinking of something and I completely killed it. So if anybody's listening or if anybody's watching this, I'm so sorry. I fully botched this interview. I am sorry. So I think I need to stop. So I'll make another video again sometime. Thank you guys. Bye.